in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace.
Well, all right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass podcast. Um, Today we're gonna talk about off-grid living. Um, I guess I kind of just really wanted to talk about how much uh how much that it's romanticized and people get an idea. At first I was gonna do an episode on bushcraft and that outside stuff, and then Kevin bailed on me this morning, as you can kind of put together here. And so, anyway, more I was thinking about it when I was doing the research over the week. I kept coming across about people talking about how hard it actually is when they go out and try and implement all these things. And and the big craft stuff was really you need to spend time outside. You need to be out there doing it. And I think so much that that's really the reality of the whole kind of off-grid living and kind of the fantasy and romance, I guess, is really what it comes down to. People watch those shows like Alone or um, Naked and Afraid or, Survivor, and they see all those things and you get an idea in your head of what it would be like and you're like, "Oh, that's not so bad." You're not feeling the elements, the cold, the freezing or the burning hot or the mosquitoes biting your neck every 2 minutes or the black flies when you're in the up in Canada, or whatever it is that gets to you. Unless you actually spend some time kind of embracing that life, it's hard, to imagine. And people end up with a very different, image or persona of what it is. And I think that's something that we all kind of fall into. Anything you look at, they always say what the grass is greener on the other side, right? And that's kind of it. You romanticize it. I was watching a lot of videos on people who moved up to Alaska and that kind of thing. And they talk about, they grew up reading the Little House on the Prairie books. And that's how they imagine it. And then you go up and you move up to Alaska, one of the last, frontiers of freedom in America, that people think, hey, I'll have people out of my business and I'll be able to embrace life and enjoy things and do it on my own terms. And that's awesome. But when they get out there, it's not always as easy and as simple and straightforward as you imagine. And I think one of the big killers that get to people is the loneliness. Even if it's just you and your spouse, or you and your spouse and your two little kids, and that small close knit group of working together all the time and just being in each other's space and dealing with each other like that, you end up um not I don't know, you don't get any outside influence, and people get very alone and they get very depressed. And some people mentally are good for that, but some people aren't. Some people really truly don't want to be around people. And other times, so I don't know. I know there was that TV show, or sorry, there was a YouTube video called Alone in the Wilderness. And it was some guy back in maybe the 70s. I don't even remember exactly. I probably should have looked it up. His name was Dick Dick Pren I don't know. His name was Dick. That's the bottom line. But he was the one who goes up to Alaska and you see him out there with an axe and he builds the log cabin. And it's really entertaining. You're like, oh, that guy's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. You see the beautiful mountains in the backdrop, and it's really inspiring. And, you get that, yeah, this is, that's what I want. I don't want the government nonsense in my life. I don't want to worry about, you know, people who are confused and I have to use their proper pronouns or whatever it is, whatever it is that's stressing you out about the day to day, and going out and having something simple and real is awesome. But just the same, even though you go out and do that, it it's hard to, you know, he was actually getting like airdrops of supplies and, talking to people. It wasn't the true alone that, it appeared to be in the in the show, or, in the video. It was, really kind of, less than that. But still, you end up with such a long, cold, lonely time. And I'm just saying, these are things you need to mentally prepare for. I'm not saying all doom and gloom. I'm saying when you go out and practice these things, when you do these things, you actually understand it better. And when you get familiar with camping and whatever, camping for 2, 3 days with the family, or even, maybe a week, that's one thing, or you go up to the cabin on the lake and you hang out and, speedboats and water skis and whatever. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of yesteryear, back a million years ago. And they, go out and do these things. It's awesome. But when it's every day of the same thing, it can kind of get a little old and whatever. And I think going out and experience these things would be, maybe the trick. And like, I know Alaska, right? They always talk about the forever summer or forever winter. What I'm talking about is the light, the daylight, and the nighttime, the darkness. And that's tough, and getting adjusted to something like that kind of thing can really put a damper and, mess with your head. But I think also the same thing, we watched that movie, Into the Wild, right? And that kid goes out with and he ends up, living in the old bus, and then he's eating the stuff and ends up like starving to death. No matter what he does, he can't get ahead of it. And we so much, I know my kids watch that and we're like, "Ooh, I want to go out and do that." Even though you see the ugly end, you see where it turns away, because it is romantic. It is, a nostalgia thing that we build up. And it is awesome to be self-reliant. I think that's everybody's like inner goal, is to be able to take care of your own business and be self-reliant. But there's a lot to be said for community. Um, there is a lot of good that comes out of working with people, and, dealing with others, and whatever, friendship, family, having a significant other that you care about. Those things make life a lot easier. Um, so I'm just saying, it'd be cool to start implementing and go out and try these things out. See what the reality is. See how hard it is to filter water and get clean water. See how hard it is cooking, off grid and doing things like that. If that's something you're really planning for, really start to kind of work into it, and, ease the skills and stuff into your life, more and more. That's kind of the beauty of it, is to do that like slow transition into the life you want. Start adding all the things instead of maybe committing to a full-on farm with, all these animals and all these different things. Maybe you buy the piece of land and you get some chickens. I mean, I'm not saying you wouldn't want to buy something with infrastructure in place if you got the bucks and things that can do it. I think that's awesome. But I also think that, easing into the responsibility and to what's out there, is a good way to be, you know? That's that's the, trick. Uh, or just move up to Alaska and be all in, jump right in, right out of the gate, right? That's always the better option. I don't know, I imagine if I just packed up things and moved up to Alaska, I'd be in for a rude awakening. That's pretty much my understanding. Um, we all, like I said, have these ideas and the fantasy, but that's what I'm worried about. If something happened and we immediately got thrust into, kind of an off-grid lifestyle, like, without any planning and easing into it, then I would say, that's something that a lot of people would find shocking and rude, um, and hard to deal with. I mean, obviously, collapse of society, something like that, that's shocking and horrible. But I'm saying just the abrupt change in lifestyle would be very shocking and upsetting. And more, you know, it looks like that might be a possibility, or that the world will change where, we need to live on a tighter budget, or maybe we're limited in how much we drive because they don't like us driving our cars because the evil gas engines, or, some kind of lockdown for, COVID 37 or whatever's coming next. Um, but that's the reality, is you need to get used to a lifestyle before you just jump in feet first. Yeah, that's what I'm always afraid of, is, you know, that rude awakening. I know the family, I'm sure a lot of your family isn't as on board with prepping as maybe, you are, or maybe the wife is the one really on board pushing, or the husband, or, or whatever it is. Not everybody has that same romantic fantasy, and it's not all going to be rainbows and sunshine. I think maybe that's what I should have called this episode, is rainbows and sunshine. That's probably what I'll change the title to. I had one plan, and now I'll go a different way. But that's the thing, is, and I'm not trying to be the buzzkill. I'm trying to say, hey, let's get outside. Let's spend time around the campfire. Let's spend time cooking off grid. Let's go out and build some fires. Let's see what it's like being out in the temperature, in the weather all the time. Let's see what it's like to, live off 3,000 watts, or, whatever it is, a 3,000 watt solar system, or whatever, works for people. But, understand, get some kind of baseline, I guess, before you decide that this is what I'm going to commit to. And, just start to embrace these things. And I got to say, when you do that, you're going to start to see where there's holes in your plans, your preps. You'll see where things start to, go amiss, or what you might need that would change your day. When you go without coffee, does that, ruin your whole life? I don't know. And maybe it's something you get used to after a week or two. I can't imagine that world. That's not maybe the world for me, but maybe that would be good. Maybe everybody would be all right with it. Hey, who doesn't like to drink whiskey at the end of a long day? I don't know. You do you, right? And when that stuff runs out and your world changes, then, it becomes very different, and it can be hard mentally to appreciate it. Um, I don't know. Eh, and, I'm looking at some of the comments we get, and, some people have grown up with that lifestyle. It's been all they've known, and that's awesome, and that's good, and they're at peace. How many little kids, can you throw at a creek and whatever, and they just have hours and hours of fun and have a great time, and some people are cool with that. And, you upheaval and grab kids out of the house today, and they're so used to staring at their tablet and their phone and, the computer and all the different things. Is it the dramatic shock, or do they ease right back into it? Firsthand, I'm not even, 100% how that plays out for everybody, but I know that it's going to be different, and there are going to be challenges, and there's going to be things that you need to, look at and think about beforehand before you get the kind of rude awakening. And, maybe it's just awesome. Maybe you take your Bible out there and you become the new man, or your copy of Atlas Shrugged, whatever it is that does it for you. I don't know. I'd probably have both next to the bed, but um, and that's the thing. Like, I even, where I am now, if I want to go to Lowe's or whatever, it's 40 minutes. I got to get in the car and make real effort to go somewhere. And, it's a commitment to drive into town or to do something. So it's just a change from what people are typically used to. I used to live in a pretty populated area of New York. And, it's very different living in the real world, being 70 miles from town or 30 miles from town, or, whatever. That all, different levels of excursion. And I don't know. It's just something to get used to. And I just think people build up these ideas. And I wasn't trying to have like the downer episode of, oh, it's all doom and gloom. No, that's not what I mean at all. What I mean is, you need to mentally prepare yourself. You need to understand that it's different, and maybe see what it takes to make those changes, see what happens when you start implementing some of that into your life, and decide if it's really what you want, or really if you're prepared for it, depending how you're looking at it, whether you're looking at just going off grid, or whether you're, looking at living a lifestyle that, is I don't know, kind of forced on you, we'll say, by a bad scenario. But I mean, again, when bad things happen, you kind of don't have a choice, right? You have to kind of be all in and embrace it. But, you know, hey, to each their own. Another thing I would say that's important is to actually go out and apply the skills, though. And that's what, where I think people fall short. Everybody is willing to put all this money into it. Like I said, we'll buy EMP shield, right? They'll use the code badass, they'll get their discount, go do that. It's awesome. And I'm good for that. And they'll buy their buckets of food from, I don't know, uh, My Patriot Supply or whatever, one of those. You'll buy a ton of frozen food, and you'll have stockpile there, and you'll maybe, I don't know, buy all your big bulk stuff at Sam's Club, and you load it up, and that's good. But the implementing and embracing it is another thing where, oh, now I'm eating pancakes for the 17th day in a row. Or, I know at my house we're eating eggs pretty much every morning, and some people might be like, hey, that's not really the life for me. And I'm like, well, I have a counter full of eggs. So it's what we're going to do. We might make it into a quiche, or they might be soft boiled today, or scrambled eggs again, or, hey, we'll do fried eggs and potatoes, or make some kind of egg burrito. But that's my point. You're saying like, hey, dude, you're like naming the same thing over and over. And yeah, that could be, back to that simpler lifestyle, what people end up getting. That's really what it comes down to, is you might end up with that same, monotony, and it can wear on people. It makes things a little hard. And then you add the stress of, being out gathering firewood and doing things to stay warm, or dealing with little dealing with food deprivation or whatever, where you're not getting enough calories based on, what you're outside doing because you're not living that same sedentary lifestyle that people are, used to, then, you need to be aware of what's coming. And like I said, it can be hard. And that's all. I just, it's, I guess it's rainbows and sunshine, but life can also be hard. And I think that's so much what you need to embrace with this and just understand. And I think if people go in with the right attitude, I think absolutely all day it can work out where everything's great. But I think you need to mentally prepare for that. And I think having a group or a community, the mutual assistance groups and the things like that that we talk about, having people around you to support you and to do, the work with you, then I think you could be so much better, so much better off. I think, relying on people or having everybody on board, getting the family out camping and used to it, getting your family having some off-grid breakfast, uh, cracking open some of the freeze-dried meals or whatever it is that's your plan, get used to that lifestyle a little bit. And I think that then you can, be more able to cope and less stress when the time comes. Um, but that's where I would, want it to be. I also think that it's so important that when you go out and you actually implement these things, you realize where the holes and the flaws might be in your survival plans, in your preps. You realize, you know what? That could be what the game changer is. That was the thing. I was watching all these videos and they're going through the different stuff and they talk about, oh, well, we lived in this one cabin in Alaska, and then we went to another cabin in Alaska. And when we did that, we realized, hey, this one had the outhouse over here, and it made their world 1,000 times better. Or they had like a foam cover on the toilet seat in the outhouse, right? And they're like, "Oh my god, what a difference in how warm my butt is when I sit on a insulated toilet seat," you know? Or you have those old school cushy foam ones, with the plastic that used to get cracked that were like the foam kind of thing and they get all dried out and old. But when you sit on those, it's nice and warm, right? You realize the little things that might make, things better, or having a real outdoor kitchen set up with a nice roof overhead. That made all the difference in the world. Or I know the guys up in Alaska, um, something like having a outdoor hot tub kind of thing. It might be a wood fired box and, a heat system to have a tank to sit in after a day in the cold might not be a bad thing. You know, you realize when you actually implement things, when you talk to people, when you get involved in a community, you realize all the different things that might be better. And I think that's why, like, listening to this podcast, watching, all your favorite off grid guys on the internet, or watching shows like Alone or things like that, if this is a lifestyle that you think you might want to embrace or whatever, realizing all the little tricks that can make your life so much easier is going to take you so much further. Um, you got to find out where the pain is that people have, and other people have already been through it. That's the beauty of it, is you can learn instead of saying, "Oh yeah, the world will collapse and I'll go have this, little house on the prairie fantasy." And instead, you can say, "You know what? That would be really hard, but you know what? This clever invention, there's something I could do." And I don't mean clever invention like stuff you guys got to run out and buy. I mean stuff that you need to, you know, um when you see the other stuff you can make and build, I'm talking about guys I see with their, stock animal water tanks, and off grid. Uncle Whiskey, who's up in Alaska there in the icy north, he uh he mentioned that, the hot tubs and saunas, that's, a big plus up there. I mean, those things, that's that's what I'm talking about, is the little things that make such a huge difference. Something that, maybe it's blackout curtains, right? For when you have the nonstop, endless sun. And maybe it doesn't bother you. Maybe you shut your eyes and you're good at night. But, maybe having the room that's in the dark, maybe that helps and makes the difference. These things are real, and also having enough light and embracing some kind of, bright lifestyle when things are going good. That's, that's the way to do it. And maybe, like I said, this is the inspiration that people need to choose out the right spouse, right? I mean, obviously I'm older. A lot of people are established, and you have the spouse you have, and you're good and happy and whatever. But when you think about what you want out of life, then, that's think of somebody you could really spend time with. Think of somebody who's going to be there to support you, instead of, well, she looks pretty, so she's got that, and we'll just, go with that. Um, I don't know. The But that's what people do, they don't choose based on a kind of best friend or a companion, and that really should be your number one priority, is finding somebody that you can work with, that, and anyway, sorry, yeah, my internet cut out for a second. But some of the pitfalls that could really do you in, are, having the wrong people around you, or choosing the wrong things, or, like I said, forgetting the right type of gear, the right thing. And the more you embrace the community, and even if that's embracing the community before things go bad, then the more you're going to have success with it. Talking to other people and getting out and involved and seeing what other people are doing. One of the biggest things I see, we have, like, the wife does a big flower farm thing here, and we grow tons of vegetables, and we have chickens and rabbits and, all the things, but going and seeing other people's farms, and go talking to people, and being like, "Hey, what are you doing? What's working for you? You have this type of soil like I do. How do you get around these problems and obstacles, that we have? Like, we have clay or whatever." And, some people in their mind, at first you're like, "Oh, do we go get some sand and put it in there?" Turns out that just turns it to cement, and it doesn't end well. So, but that's the thing. You need to, these are the things that people who are living the same life already know, the lessons that they learned. You learn about the obstacles and the things that, could really help you. Oh, we do this to fight whatever, the Japanese beetle that's eating all our fruit trees, or, the deer keep eating my apples off my apple tree, so I planted garlic around the base. I mean, these are the tricks that you learn from being involved in a community. And that's where it really, it can really change things. It can really help out where, how your life is going to play out. I gotta say, it's better than being, overwhelmed by it. It's better than being blindsided. And what it really comes down to is, if you want the rainbows and sunshine life, you're going to need community. You're going to need to, and like I said, it doesn't mean to plan the end of the world. Maybe your prep is that you're going to your cabin out on the mountain, and you're going to be, alone and just fine and whatever. And maybe that's fine. And you and your family, or you and the wife, or you and the wife and the kids, that's all good. But embracing the community and learning what's out there, what's going on, and who you can, how you can rely on systems that work and people that work if you're thinking mutual assistance group, that kind of thing. Learning others' skills and knowing, where you should devote your efforts. These are the things to do beforehand and to embrace. So I'm just saying, rainbows and sunshine, that's where you guys need to be. It's not always that. But if you go out and practice, if you go out and embrace it a little bit, if you try and enjoy this world a little bit, and see what happens. Take the parts that you love, whatever drew you to it, whatever drew you to wanting to go have an off-grid life or to be prepared. Maybe like, for me early on was, hey, my world could dramatically change. I don't know if you guys ever heard the story, because I probably haven't mentioned it in a long time ago, but one of the big things that kind of got me into the whole prepping thing was that a million years ago, I I was when I was in the Navy, we were over in Kosovo, and we were just, bombing Yugoslavia and doing all kinds of stuff. Well, it's weird because we're basically trying to stop genocide and bad things. I don't know. There's always all kinds of reasons that the government gets into things that aren't exactly the official reasons. But anyway, the bottom line is the government was kind of rolling through town. It's kind of that whole Sunni Shiite thing with the Muslims, and rolling through town, and anybody they didn't agree with, they'd roll them out of town and burn everything and attack women and children and chase them off. And their life got abruptly changed. And I was like, I never want to be in a position where I feel so impotent, incapable of protecting my family, where I would be, unable to do something. And to me, that thought is kind of terrifying. And having the peace of mind of being able to do that, is huge. Um, yeah, I mean, Yugoslavia, and yeah, it was just a mess. And I don't know. I mean, and it goes on all over the world. But the thing is, you need to be able you know, to take care of your family. And, that's the same thing as you sitting in on the couch watching TV, eating popcorn with the kids, and then somebody kicks in the door and has a gun, and you don't have a handgun on your side or on the table next to you or near you, right? You would feel so helpless and unable to defend them. And I just never want to be in that situation. I've had situations in the past where I've been, caught flat footed, as they say, or, off guard. And I never wanted that. And I never wanted to see that again. Right. So I take steps to prepare, and that gives me peace of mind. Right. And this is one more thing, that I was talking about is when you plan a lifestyle like that, it's one more step to ensure success if you go out and you practice it. If you go out and try out what you're doing, you make a plan beforehand. You don't just jump in the water without knowing how to swim. I know people say, "Oh, well, that's how you're going to learn." What is there? There's like an old John Wayne video on YouTube where you see him pick up the kid and toss him in the lake or whatever, in the creek, because he's like, "Oh, I can't swim," and well, you need to learn. Well, yeah, but it's a little bit easier if you get some kind of instruction first, is all I'm saying. You can definitely rush along the process, but that's really what it comes down to. So, like I said, it maybe isn't always rainbows and sunshine, but by talking and communicating with people, by interacting with the community, and basically getting your feet wet and understanding things, you can make it where it is a lot closer to rainbows and sunshine. And I will say, if you're the only guy with solar, or your car still runs and nobody else's does, well, then you know what? It's going to feel like rainbows and sunshine when everybody else's world is falling apart. So that's basically the goal. So anyway, you guys have questions, concerns, you want to yell at Kevin for not being here this morning, you can email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. You want to find some cool survival and prepping, something badass, t-shirts and coffee mugs. I guess I'm drinking a Black Rifle coffee mug this morning. But preppingbadass.com, click on gear. You can check out. We got some cool stuff. I would also encourage you guys to join us in the Facebook group or on the Facebook page. I'll try and get the links in the show notes. And you know, just be part of the community. You know, a lot of guys watch us on YouTube and follow us there too. So you can be in the chat in the morning. I do have a real hard time trying to have coherent thoughts and reading the chat at the same time. Definitely goes a little bit easier when I have Kevin here because yeah, it's kind of like chewing gum and walking. You know, you can't do both at the same time. Or like I said, I can't do both at the same time. But I would say Merry Christmas. I know that's coming up here for you guys in the next 2 days, something, 3 days. So very close. And anyway, with that, stay safe, and I will talk to you guys next week.